Welcome to my gallery here in southwest France and my channel Enjoy Watercolour Painting. I'm a watercolourist, I paint in watercolours and I give watercolour classes. And this tutorial today is all about painting autumn trees. Thank you, Penny, one of my subscribers, for your suggestion. It's an ideal time of year to cover this subject. And here I'm going to take the subject in different stages, covering several different techniques to get the desired effect. I have a picture here, painting here, which is not quite finished. There's still work to be done, and we're going to use this painting for the latter stages of the painting, showing you how to get more detail and more contrast. But I also have a blank paper here ready to start, and we're going to start from this stage with the basic washes. So we're going to cover every step, every stage of the painting. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you stay with me. I'll explain it as we go, and let's get started. Now, as you can see, I have everything prepared. Quite a selection of colour palettes. Green here predominantly, with transparent yellow and a selection of blues, ultramarine and Windsor blue-green shade. Transparent orange palette here, yellows and red. I'm not sure whether I will use the red, but it's there all the same to start with. Indian red and burnt sienna, which is going to come in useful. I have a selection of brushes. We're going to use all these brushes. Oh, there's a toothbrush as well, which I must put into the mix because we will be using the toothbrush. I have two fan brushes here, and I'll explain why I have two of them a little bit later, but this is quite a useful tip that I've discovered over the years. I have mop brush and a liner brush and the usual acrylic flat, which possibly I will use to move colour. The picture I showed you earlier, the painting, the watercolour that I've done already and worked to a certain point, is here for reference because I want to stick with the same colours and really the same form. I'm not going to do any pencil drawing at all, and you'll see why as we go. This is my paper, similar size to this, so we can compare, and it will be a good reference point. And I'm not going to stretch the paper, I'll put it on the board. It's harsh, rough grain, which will help us with the texture. The usual 2 pots of water, and I'm going to explain each technique that I use as we go. So let's paint. Now I want to start with pale colour, and I have my yellow palette and a green palette ready to go, and also transparent orange. Darker colour as well, of Payne's grey and transparent yellow. And first of all, I'm going to wet the paper with a toothbrush, just clean water. I don't want it wet all over, I just want patches that are wet and dry areas too. So I'm using the toothbrush, just flicking the water onto the paper, just randomly as we go. you can see the action I'm using with the index finger just to get a good spread of water. I want it to be quite generous areas in some areas and very light and delicate in other areas. So I'm now spotting in the yellow so I can see exactly where the water is. The yellow will only follow the lines of water, and you can see the blobs caught in the light there. And now I can use the mop brush just to move the colour a little, just to give me an idea of where the yellow shading is going to be. There's no real plan to this. It is just a very random effect. I want to use the light yellowy green as well, which I'm putting on the dry areas alongside the yellow so they start to blend. This is going to be the basis for the autumn leaves. Just the area below the leaves, I can add more water to make the colour denser here. It's just because I want to have the lighter areas and the white of the paper shining through in some places. So this is just the foundation. Light colour just allowed to blend. And now I go to my Payne's Grey transparent yellow palette and add a defining line which will give me some idea of where the larger tree is going to be positioned. You can see a similar line on the painting that we have worked at already up above there. And I'm now adding a hint of orange. Because the paper is wet, the orange will blend, which is exactly what I want at this stage. Just let the paint move a little by tipping the paper. And now just work a little bit, a combination of Indian red and burnt sienna further down to give the basis for my background. Matte dry. There's really not much moisture there, and I'm using the toothbrush again, this time to flick paint, first starting with yellow and going into transparent orange and burnt sienna, just to give more leaf detail. And because the paper is just a little bit damp, almost dry, the paint's not going to go far, and I need to, with a wet liner brush, just move it a little, just to give a bit more detail and more colour to the leaves. Again, this is a very random process. I'm really not planning where things are. But this is good because the randomness of the shading and the colour will give us a hint of where we put the branches later, as you will see. So it's all about the leaves, not so much about the branches at this stage. Moving the colour as we go and letting the colours combine. Bit more. If you get big blobs, use a larger mop brush to take them off and move them. That's a good hint. And you can see now we're ready now with a pattern of autumn colours, and we can start to think about the tree. And it's a question of getting the tree in position and working around the leaf, the distribution of leaves. So the leaves are already there, and some of the leaves are in front of the trunk. So we're painting in the negative to leave those leaves in position and to grow the trunk of the tree using a combination of, this time I've used ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and I also have my dark green, Payne's grey and transparent yellow palette, so I can add a hint of green. Takes quite a bit of concentration to do this, and if you are struggling using paint like this and working freehand, you can always draw the tree first with a watercolour crayon, but again use the same principle of not joining the dots. Now you see the branch, now you don't, as it hides behind the leaves that are already there, and this will give you a much more realistic and beautiful painting. We can use a smaller liner brush as well, just to do the delicate branches. And remember that the branches decrease in size as they're further away from the trunk. So you can't have a big branch coming off a little branch. That's an important thing to remember. And the leaves, of course, the tree is three-dimensional. So some branches will cross in front of the trunk as well, and cross each other. Spend time looking at trees if you can, wherever you are when you're out and about, because they are the most beautiful things to look and appreciate. And this picture is an appreciation of a tree in autumn. I'm just kind of joining the dots up in some places now, but keeping my paint nice and dark, initially anyway, but I want some branches in the background that are lighter to give again more depth to the tree, and this is what I'm doing now, just adding the lighter branches, less important branches behind. This all helps to give depth and realism to the tree. More work on the smaller branches. When you come to a junction, it's often a Y junction. A smaller branch comes off a bigger branch, and you can spend a long time adding smaller branches, but try not to keep the line straight, but have a little waver in the line of the branches, because that looks more natural. If they're dead straight, they don't look realistic. But let those leaves shine through. Let the leaves interrupt the branches in as many places as you can, as you see in the image. Now we're defining that distance line again with the green mix, which is Payne's grey and transparent yellow, and moving it with water on the brush just so it's a soft line, and below moving it with a diluted mix of burnt sienna. Of course, I've speeded this part up of the video, but I hope you can see it clearly enough to appreciate how it's going. I'm thinking now of the distance and the trees in the distance that are behind our main tree, and I'm using the liner brush just with one line, which I then move with water to create the trees. We can always darken them later if need be, because they do need to be different colour values. The nearer ones need to be darker, and the further away ones just very pale, as you see in the image at the top of the screen. And this is early days with the painting we're working on just now. But I want to block in some more pale green as well, to give more depth, to take the eye through past the main tree. And always we're trying to keep this background very misty and diluted, because autumn is like that, isn't it? It's a misty season and very mellow and beautiful. You can put in as many trees as you like, really, just to take your eye through to the far distance. More definition on that line where to kind of give us a foreground to work on, which I'm going to do now with the dry brush technique, using a mop brush on its side and a combination of burnt sienna and Payne's grey to give us a dark brown. And then we can spot in orange in the wetter areas, and the orange will move and give us those leafy highlights, fallen leaves that have fallen from the tree. Of course, there's still more work to do on the tree. I've kind of done things as reversed as I explained before, and now we've reversed the situation and we have the initial painting back where I said we would finish it and do more detail. And I'm using the fan brushes. As you'll see, I have two fan brushes here. One is synthetic and the other one is natural hair. The synthetic brush just doesn't work as well, and that was the point I wanted to make. It doesn't, when wet, it just gives you a line of spikiness. The natural hairbrush, partially concealed by my head, I'm sorry, still doing that, and it's really difficult to find a way around it. But this is a natural hair fan brush, and always go for a natural hair fan brush rather than a synthetic one, because when you're using it to make a leafy pattern, as we are just now, it needs to be so random and the leaves can't be in line, and with the synthetic brush that it always are just a line of dots. And make the brush dance across the paper, twiddle it round, don't just let it go in one direction, do a little dance with it. So that gives you a more natural effect also. And keep the brush well supplied, full of paint, and using all the different colours, the burnt sienna, the yellow, the Indian red, so that you're cutting across the trunk as well as adding more embellishment to the finer branches. Again, this could go on forever, but I think you have the gist of how we're getting there with it. And I'm using the fan brush again now, still on the dry paper, always on the dry paper with the fan brush to give this leaf effect. But this time I'm keeping it more horizontal because the leaves are lying on the ground. Perhaps a little bit more work to the finer branches, and I think we're there. Okay, so now we have the initial picture, the one I showed you at the start of the tutorial, more or less finished, or I could still do some more work on the branches and indeed the leaves. It's always difficult knowing when to stop. But we've taken this to a level of finish. We have the picture that we started here, still damp, and this is more or less at the same stage that this one was at when we started, if you understand what I mean, and if you followed it you will. Of course we have all the detail to add to this one. It will take quite a lot more work before it's finished. Basically, in conclusion, I have to say that you start with the first washes pale and use more water, and working forward, stronger pigments and more detail as you go. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you've enjoyed it. It has been a bit of a marathon, but we've got there. Please let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and leave any comments you may have. I always enjoy the comments. And if you have a suggestion for a subject you would like to see me paint, just let me know. It always helps to have that input, and I really appreciate it. So from my channel, enjoy watercolour painting and my gallery. Till the next time, bye.